I'm bored. No. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. I hereby call to order the October 5th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Frisco Planning Commission. Please call attendance.
Neil Lesmus,
Here.
Andy Stabile,
Here.
Here.
and Ira Tane.
Here.
And then Kelsey Withrow, April Connolly, and Patrick Gleason are absent tonight.
Okay, the previous planning commission meeting minutes have been distributed. If commissioners have any comments or corrections, please voice them now.
No.
Okay, next, please take a vote. All in favor? Please raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. This is a meeting of the Frisco Planning Commission. Any comments that anyone in the audience may wish to make on a subject not on this evening's agenda may be made now. Citizens making comments should state their name and address for the record, be topic specific, and limit comments to no longer than 3 minutes. No action is taken on public comments. Planning Commission will take all comments under advisement, and if a response is appropriate, the individual making the comment, they will receive a formal response at a later date. Does anyone wish to make any comments on items not on this evening's agenda? I see none in the audience and nobody raising their hand online. So moving on, at this time, I would like to open the public meeting portion of the Planning Commission agenda. This commission is appointed and serves as an advisory board to the town council. It has certain final authority as identified in the individual staff report. For each item on the agenda this evening, a staff report will be presented. After the staff report, planning commissioners will ask questions of staff. We will then allow the applicant, if they so choose, to make a presentation. After that, the public may comment on the application. The first item on the agenda is planning file number MAJ-23-0004, a sketch plan review of a major site plan application for a proposed multifamily residential development consisting of 3 units located at 411 Teller Street, lot 17, 18, 19, block 19, Frisco Town Sub. The applicant is Whitney Young on behalf of Donald Holmes. Emily, would you like to do?
All right. Okay. So as you stated tonight, we have a sketch plan application for 411 Teller Street. It's sketch plan. So as you know, no formal approvals are made at this time, and you will be providing comments to the applicant. Some background, the applicant is proposing a new multifamily development located at 411 Teller Street. The proposal includes 3 units between 2 buildings, with 1 building being a duplex and the other a detached townhome or acting as a single unit. The site is zoned residential high density, and all surrounding properties are zoned the same. The 4th and Teller townhomes are to the west, and the Granite Point townhomes are to the east. The existing site consists of a 1-story single-family residence with 2 sheds. As you may remember, the applicant had previously submitted a sketch plan in June of this year, and it showed 4 units on site. So this is what was previously submitted. The parking was not meeting code, and the applicant has since revised the layout. This is just a sketch of the new proposed project. And to go through the dimensional standards, the permitted density for this site is 16 units per acre. With a lot size of 0.24 acres, the site allows for up to 4 units. The applicant is proposing 3 units. And now you can get a good idea of the duplex to the north and then the detached townhome to the south. The maximum lot coverage in this zone district is 55%, and the applicant is proposing 54.75%. The application is meeting the minimum setback standards for this zone district. And then the height is, or the maximum height is 35 feet, and the applicant is proposing 34.75 feet. Moving on, we have steep slopes on the property. So the applicant is proposing a steep slope disturbance on the south side of the property. The allowed steep slope disturbance per the UDC ranges. So for slopes that range from 15 to 30%, the entire area maximum disturbance can be 50% of that area. And for slopes greater than 30%, the maximum allowed disturbance is 15%. Based on what is stated in their plans, the applicant is meeting those requirements. This will be further reviewed at the time of final submittal with the disturbance boundary clearly identified and details on how they plan to stay within the disturbance boundary during construction. Moving on to access, grading, and drainage. Access into this site is meeting the minimum and maximum width requirements. The town engineer and Summit Fire have done a preliminary review of the proposed project. However, they will do a final complete review at time of final submittal. The town engineer has provided red line plans to the applicant, which includes drainage concerns on the south end of the lot. And these concerns will have to be addressed at the time of final review. Summit Fire has also provided preliminary comments and has stated that the applicant will be required to improve the Teller Street right of way to meet a minimum imposed load of 75,000 pounds. And so that would be from the south side, as that is not currently paved or maintained by Public Works. For parking, the 2 duplex units are 3-bedroom units and therefore require 3 parking spaces. The applicant shows a 2-car garage with 1 tandem space for both units. The single unit or detached townhome has 4 bedrooms and 4 parking spaces provided with a 2-car garage and 2 tandem spaces. In the red line comments provided by the town engineer, he had questions about the feasibility of parking for the duplex units. The applicant has since provided a turning radius that shows a more clear layout of the parking spaces for that duplex building. The town engineer has not reviewed the latest set of submittals, but as of now, staff finds that the tandem parking is meeting the requirements in the UDC. The applicant is meeting snow storage requirements and is accounting for the rooftop decks. The application is also meeting the landscape requirements. Here are the elevations for the single unit or the detached townhome on the south end of the lot. And then here are all 4 elevations for the duplex building. As far as facade standards, the applicant is showing a variety of building materials on all 4 facades and uses elements to limit duplication. Staff found that the 2 elevations that face each other are not meeting the minimum facade requirements. And while they do face each other and are pretty close, they are still required to meet the minimum requirements. Roof standards, the applicant is showing a combination of pitches of 212, 412, and 612, meeting the requirements. The proposed roof forms generally deposit snow away from parking areas and walkways. There is 1 pitch on the south unit that deposits snow onto the rooftop deck, but it is pretty minimal. Here are the proposed exterior building materials. It includes an exterior stone, dark brown horizontal siding, and then board and batten siding. The application is meeting the building material requirements outlined in the UDC. The applicant is showing 350 cubic feet of bulk plain encroachments. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission discuss these encroachments. And here is, or just more renderings of the project from all, or a variety of angles. And that is all I have. I recommend that the Planning Commission discuss the proposed parking, the intent of the facade design, and then the bulk plain encroachments. Before opening it up for questions, I would like to note that staff received public comments from Ray Smith this morning, located at 215 East South, or 215 E South 5th Avenue. These have been provided to you in writing, and then they will be provided to the applicants after the meeting.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, at this time, we'll have questions of the commissioners of the staff. Andy, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Emily. I wanted to ask about the end of Teller Street.
and what the plan is as it's proposed for paving and maintenance of that street moving forward, and who's going to be plowing it and who's responsible for figuring out where the snow
Right.
goes.
So because this is not labeled as an alley, but is acting as an alley, Teller Street is not going to be maintained, paved or anything by Public Works. This is what we've been seeing on a variety of other projects. So the applicant will have to meet those same requirements at providing removal or snow removals and storage plan, maintenance plan that will be all required with the final docs for their HOA agreements.
And not just accounting for the snow on their property, but accounting for the snow all the way from Fifth Avenue.
Right. The requirement from Summit County or from Summit Fire is a 20-foot paved area. And so it should account for additional area. Those plans have not been provided, so I don't have a lot of details on what that will look like.
We know who plows snow and where it goes now.
I don't know that. I believe it's just been the residents.
To clarify, the email from Raymond Smith, he says the town plows it. Is that not? good?
I would have to check with Public Works. That was not my understanding, but I could be wrong.
Ira, any questions of the staff?
So in regards to what we just discussed, would the intent of the applicant, what they're going to do with Teller Street, be part of the final submission? I mean, exactly what they plan to do?
It would
Right.
have to be.
It will have to be, and
Okay,
those
okay.
agreements will have to be recorded with the final plat.
Okay. And then on staff report on page 14, there's a XL Energy paragraph that says that it seems that the second story operable winds, I think that's a typo, means windows, will not be met. There's something that XL is concerned about with where their transformers can go. I wonder what happens with that comment as we go through the process.
Right, so the applicant will have to address that and they can, if they have questions, they can reach out to Excel, but at the time of final review, these will have to be addressed. Excel will review it again and be able to provide comments on the updated
Okay,
plans.
good.
Excel wins every time.
Yeah.
And like Emily noted, it will go back to Excel before it comes to you for a final public hearing.
Right, because this is sketch, we get the comments, we don't require, changing the plans before bringing them to you if there's nothing major. So that's why you see these comments in here
Mhm.
without being addressed.
Okay, I'm done.
Jessica, any comments? Oh, question, sorry.
Yeah, Emily, you said that staff finds that the facade standards are not being met by the applicant. Could you just show
Yeah.
those facades?
Like those, it's,
About those concerns that staff had.
right, let me pull them back up. And really, it's just minor. I don't see it being a big issue. It is the two facades that are facing each other. So here this is the duplex unit. So the south elevation of the duplex or the building on the north side. And then the single family unit or the detached townhome. So the two facades facing each other. And I believe they would just have to add one more element to meet the criteria. So there are 7 criteria outlined. So the change in materials, I would have to, and I couldn't tell with that eave, if that eave is 24 inches in depth, that counts as a building element. Insets and offsets, patios, those types of elements.
So I guess. And we have to
Sorry,
follow
yeah.
the order of the agenda,
Sorry.
yeah. Sure, go ahead.
I'm just curious, you mentioned that they're accounting for the rooftop snow storage. Can you show us how they're doing that? Where is their snow storage for those rooftop decks?
Shows it on the site plan and So they show the location adjacent to the deck along with adjacent to the driveway. As we've discussed before, our UDC requirement specifically outlines the quantity for rooftop decks. It doesn't provide other criteria. So as far as meeting the requirements, this would meet the requirements.
That one seems like it actually works because it's right, it's directly adjacent. Some of these I'm curious to see how they're gonna get them to work, but that one does seem like it works. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Nothing else, thanks.
Okay, couple of just understanding questions. Is on the single family home, the two lower bedrooms, that's a basement, right? Or partial basement with, does it have window wells?
Looks to be like grade windows above grade.
It has window egress wells just outside those two.
But
egress
is it a
windows.
basement?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much, okay. And then the bulk lane encroachments, are those new?
Those were shown on the last sketch as well. And as the applicant stated at the meeting in June, those bulk lane encroachments, and let me pull them up, are elements that cover rooftop decks. So they're more of they're architectural elements to help with the snow shedding.
Okay, and is it those same rooftop decks that we are requiring snow storage for?
Nope, so the rooftop deck that is uncovered was that snow storage area that you just saw.
Okay, so okay. So where are these rooftop decks that we're talking about?
So these are the
This?
encroachments right here, and this is a deck. There's also decking right here.
Okay, so it's not on top of the roof.
It's like an extension of the roof.
I guess it's on top of this roof,
What's on
Deck.
top of the roof.
the deck. When I picture rooftop decks, they're like on top of the roof.
They're, yeah, I guess. They're covered, but they're the top, yeah.
So they're still technically.
Yeah,
a
so
roof, I guess.
floor roof.
They're, okay, they're different than some of the other ones you have been seeing as far as truly being the roof.
Okay. The other question I have, is it, so, and maybe this is details, but like the bedroom that's labeled guest bedroom, that can't act as a lock off, right? It doesn't see, I just was kind of curious if it was labeled that way.
As far as.
Would it be act as a lock off? Yeah.
Lock off, I don't believe there's a separate entrance. I'd have to double check on that.
Okay. And then my final question has to do with the parking for the duplex. It still seems like you can't get out of that second garage space without, if there's a car in the driveway.
Right, and we have seen this in, other applications, and as far as meeting the tandem requirements, we have been allowing it, so that is.
Right, but when we request turning radii, turning movements, and it still shows that it goes through that
You have to. move the
parking
car.
space.
That's
Yeah.
The
for
car.
tandem parking, to work,
Yes.
you have to move the car.
Right.
Okay. All right, those are my only questions. Thank you, Emily. Moving on
Can I
to,
just do a follow-up question?
oh, sure, go ahead.
The bulk plan encroachments, like that's for the purpose of architectural relief, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it's not to just to cover a deck. Right, it's only if it architecturally relief
Provides
architectural
architectural relief.
and also happens to cover a deck.
Right, so you could determine that it,
Any other questions? All right. Okay, so now we'll ask the applicant to come to the podium and give your presentation if you have one.
Hi, Winnie Young. Thank you for having us. So I think if you look at the progression of what we originally proposed and where we're at now, we've taken the comments, the regulations, we've taken everything to heart, that this wasn't just about cramming as many bodies into a building as humanly possible, but being respectful to what is legitimately going to fit on the lot, considering parking, steep slope disturbance, et cetera. So going to where we are now, I really just wanted to focus on the staff comments that came back, specifically the architectural relief. So really our purpose with that was not trying to encroach to gain more living space, but to encroach to help with snow storage, trying to eliminate snow dumping into walkways, decks, et cetera. Trying to make it, considering that this will probably be a second homeowner, trying to create something that was more easily maintained and not creating a bunch of problems for everyone. But it does so happen to also cover decks, et cetera. As far as the parking goes, I feel like we've met the standards at this point. So really one thing I did want to talk to you guys about, and you kind of have addressed this with the 7 elements of the architectural elements for the facade. So we do have the 2 buildings that face each other, the duplex and the single family residence. We purposely didn't add a lot of architectural detail into that because they do face each other. It didn't seem like an area well spent for architectural design, adding windows, since it's going to be like a New York City building where you're just staring at your neighbor. So really would like your feedback as to what you guys would see as acceptable, so that we're bringing our best foot forward with a plan that you guys will approve.
Great, thank you. Okay, now we'll have commissioners ask questions of the applicant. Ira, let's start with you this time.
Okay. So you went from the 4 to the 3 to make it more doable. You know what, we just talked about that little alley between the 2 buildings like New York City. Would you consider, instead of having 2 buildings, making it a triplex? That would get rid of those 2 sides. And you have on the duplex, you have decks on the outside corners. And one of those decks is open to look at the wall that you just kindly talked about. So I mean, if it were a single structure, it would be a little bit more compact on the land. And I think you not have to waste any money on windows or architectural design for the facing walls.
And we can certainly look into that from a building standpoint. This may be 1 phase, 2 phase. So that may or may not be feasible, but I guess we'd like to know that if they were to stay as proposed, you mentioned modification of the eaves, is something that minor going to be the difference between this being acceptable and not acceptable? Or what specifically are you looking for?
I don't have that exact answer. That's going to be up to you to bring to me to see. I was just giving you,
And that's a very good idea, and one that we will definitely discuss.
could save you some money.
Emily, is there a code section that defines these 7 elements?
Yep, there is, I can get you that 180-6.22A facade standards. You'll look under building elements, they're all there. It is also outlined in the staff report.
Okay, thanks.
That's all I have.
Okay, Jessica.
I don't think I don't have too many questions. I don't think for you. The west elevation, I'm just looking at these elevations that kind of shows the 2 buildings. It just looks, I guess, a little odd with that top level cantilevered out. But maybe I'm not looking at that right. Yeah, the east and west elevations, I think just that like top floor of, I believe, what is the single family just aesthetically looks a little unusual to me. I don't know if I'm missing something in looking at it.
Is that meant to be a cantilever? Which she saw, it is, the third floor cantilever's out?
It does. One of the elements you guys are looking for is relief in your elevations.
Okay, I think maybe just this elevation in isolation. Looks a little strange. Again, yeah, I don't have too many questions for the applicant. Thank you.
It's not the entire third floor, it's just part of that third. Okay.
How far apart are the buildings?
Yeah, that was my question.
At the closest point, like the eaves of both roofs, they're 5 feet.
The walls, though?
The walls.
Because I know a whole bunch of fire codes kick in when you get buildings that are closer than 10 feet. You can't have openings in window and walls anymore from the assumed property line, which means 10 feet between the buildings usually, right?
5 feet from a property line or 5 foot from the building is my understanding of the code, and then if they're less than that, then there are certain requirements of that in the building code of the fire code, like opening sizes or fire ratings or et cetera, but
Yeah.
I think it's just 5 feet is the minimum.
Typically, I believe it's measured 5 feet from that assumed property line between the two buildings, so it ends up being 10 feet between walls. So I think what I would love to see is, can we just get some dimensions on there that show how far apart those buildings are, and make sure the building department is aware and let them comment on that?
Like the IP speed side.
We can add dimensions.
Yes, yeah, that's fine. Just throw them on there, because that's one that I've come up against before, and it would change your design quite a bit if you had to be all of a sudden 10 feet apart and you're only 5 feet apart.
Yeah, it's definitely taken into consideration.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
My only question was the same question, the distance between the buildings. How easy or hard is it for you to put together colored renderings?
Not hard at all.
Great. Would love to see colored renderings
Okay.
with the final. Those are all my questions. Let's see, now is the public comment portion of this hearing. When making comments, please identify yourself. Oh, sorry. So we're opening public comments. When making comments, please identify yourself for the record by stating your name and your interest in the application. At no time during the hearing should the public speak directly to the applicant or to other public members and vice versa. All comments must be directed to the commission. Statements should be brief and non-repetitious. The public hearing is held for the purpose of receiving testimony on the application, and it's not a question and answer session. All members of the audience are asked to respect a few ground rules. Sorry, there's like 4. Please avoid talking while others are speaking. Avoid personal attacks or accusations. Respect a time limit of 3 minutes and refrain from addressing the audience. Is there any public comments? I see none in the audience and no one raising their hand in the screen. So I think we can move on to commissioner comments.
I'm glad to see that you open up the space some to go from 4 units to 3. It gives you a little bit more flexibility. I don't really know what the ultimate intent, what you're gonna plan to do for that Teller Street, which, like I was saying, to Emily, it's kind of backwards. Teller Alley is paved and Teller Street is a mishmash. So I don't know what you're gonna do, so I'd really be interested to see how you work with Public Works on that. As far as the bulk plane, I see there's purpose for it. I don't really have a problem with that. The other thing we're asked to comment on, one of the other things is the north and south walls facing each other. I mentioned what I thought would be a reasonable consideration. Other than that, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ira. Jessica?
Yeah, I'm sure the Teller Street improvements you'll work out with Public Works, the facade standards. Yes, we'll review that, but I'm pretty confident that by working with staff, you'll be able to get, something that meets the code. So no concern with that. I have seen a lot of times where people, design something that kind of like, maxes out the standards, and you're absolutely within them. So I'm not saying you're not, but just be aware of that during construction for, things that go unexpectedly. And then all of a sudden, your building is an inch too high, but it doesn't matter if it's just an inch, it's too high. So I just see that on a lot of the dimensions. So just something to be aware of during design. I'm not really seeing I see the utility of the covered decks. I don't know if it meets the bulk plane standards, which is architectural relief. That's just me. So I don't know what you can do and play with that. I think we're asked to comment on the parking. It's kind of another situation where, it does meet code. I don't, in real life, it might be a little bit different, especially when it's snowing and things like that, but it does meet code. So yeah, and I appreciate you taking the time to, modify and refine and move forward. And I look forward to seeing what you have at the next step.
Thank you. Andy?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I don't, I think the parking is as best as we can make it with the current codes. So I don't have any issues with the parking as it is right now. The facades, north and south facades, facing facades, I've come up against this one myself, and it's definitely, it's not that hard to get to 4 of those. You're almost there. And, I think we need to stick with that. If we want to talk about updating that code at some point, I'd be happy to have that discussion. But right now, that's what it says. So I think we just need to get you to those 4. As far as the bulk plane encroachments, this is one where I sort of take a little bit of exception, where people keep talking about architectural relief, meaning design. But architecture means a lot of things. And I think covering a deck is an architectural reason to have a roof, personally. So in that respect, I think it does meet that part of the code. And as long as they're within the cubic footage allowed, I don't have an issue with it. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for bringing the samples. I do think it'll be nice to. I know that's ambitious. Usually it's just one rock, but you don't get the full sense of it. So we appreciate it. Yeah, no, we appreciate it. But it'll be nice to see those mapped onto the model next time, and we can see some renderings of that. So yeah, other than that, nice progress. Thank you.
Thanks. And my comments are, I really appreciate that you reduced the number of units. It does seem to fit a little bit better. I also appreciate the not going over the limits of disturbance for the steep slopes. I don't really like that bulk plane encroachment. I think it goes a little far. I mean, I do agree that covering the deck is probably a good idea, but I don't know. And then I keep making this comment now, whereas I really think that the town should be maintaining those alleys where we're proposing new access points. So I know that that's neither here nor there, but I just feel like I need to make that comment on the record. Other than that, I appreciate the effort. Look forward to seeing the next reiteration, and thank you for the changes you've made. Anybody have a motion?
No motion.
Oh, there's no
That's
motion.
just
Okay,
comments.
sorry. Oh my gosh. All right, well, thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is staff and commissioner updates.
All right, we have posted the vacancy for Patrick's spot.
That's news to me.
You missed that
Pat-
meeting.
yeah.
Yes, he's moving to the Front Range. So he said he could participate partly through October, so I don't even know if we'll see him again at the
Okay.
meetings. So we have posted that vacancy. We were hoping to get it quickly, have interviews at the second town council meeting. But we haven't had any applicants yet, so spread the word.
I hadn't even heard that there was an opening.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna ask, how are you putting the word out there?
It daily, and it needs to get out through the blasts that our Vanessa, our communication person, does. She has been out this week, and so we got a little delayed with that, but right now it's in the Summit Daily, and you will see more blasts coming from the town hall, but that's why I'm encouraging everyone to please spread the word if you know anyone who might be interested in applying for it.
How many applicants do we have for that last?
So
vacancy?
the last round happened before I started, 3. And there was a couple and then it went back and they did it again. So it's a 3, the final one, maybe. Yeah, so.
Do you go back and reach out to people that were interested in the past? I know there was one time, there was like 9 people that applied.
I talked about that with the town manager's office, but because there was confusion with the last round where the applicants weren't even necessarily interviewed by the same council members due to some things that had occurred on timing, there weren't really happy notes left, feedback from the people who didn't get chosen from what we heard. So we'd love people to reapply, but we're not reaching out because we think they were a little disgruntled over the process at last time. Where it's much better this time. We're all on track. We get some applicants. So yeah, spread the word if you know anybody who wants to be a planning commission member. And only other little updates I have for you is that Jess already knows this, but Summit County is working on starting their comp plan. So they asked us to pass on information about an open house that they're doing. So we did bring a flyer if anyone wants to make note of that. You can I just printed one out to pass around, or feel free to take. They're trying to get all of the input from everybody that they can.
Is this the only open house? Well,
What's the only one that so far?
okay.
And then the only on the comprehensive plan update, we today just found out at the end of the day that we received our DOLA grant we applied for from community development for $100,000. So we actually just got funded $100,000 for a new towards a new comp plan and 3 mile plan for 2024. So we'll be putting out an RFP in the next couple of weeks for that. And then we're going to make it a real estate approved plan, which we don't have right now. So we're going to include resiliency, we're going to include water and it won't be a community plan. It'll be an official comprehensive plan finally for the town of Frisco. So excited to get back into some elements that we haven't worked on before. And I think it'll be good. Emily and Sally will get a good creative project to also be helping out with and working on for the town. So you'll be heavily involved. But that we won't we won't sign a contract with anybody to start the work to help us until January, after January, because of the grant funding timelines. So.
Not tracking at the same time as the counties.
Staggered.
Well, it's staggered. This is 2024.
The counties will take.
I guess it is
that long.
October.
Right through somehow. We'll pass the county.
For some counties.
Okay, never mind then.
Scratch
We
that
have a
comment.
lot smaller area. A lot,
Just logistically.
Yeah, I get it.
yeah, there's so much more area and deal with Summit County. So.
The county hasn't, the county hasn't updated their master plans in a while, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Been a while.
Did you say 300,000 for the grant?
100,000.
I was caught. Sorry.
Okay.
Couldn't hear.
Sorry, yeah, 100,000. A general estimate is about 180,000 for a good quality company for a town our size. So we applied for 100 and then that gives us an extra 20,000 we're gonna put in to do a 3 mile. Our 3 mile plan is years out of date by state requirements, so we need to get that done too. So I'm gonna tie them together. And that was all I had. Any updates? I know I asked you both, but if you thought of anything. Oh, we have a housing specialist we hired for community development starting November 6th. And we have been interviewing for our admin assistant who will, community resource specialist or admin who will be doing the planning commission. We're pulling Cheryl, we love, but she has way too much work on her hands. So we're going to pull that off into a different position. So once we hire that person, you'll see someone else coming here to sending out agendas, packets, doing minutes. And then they're also going to do our short-term rental administration of that program. So very administrative role. And we're hoping to make an offer this week to somebody for that. And then we started interviewing for the planner 1 position this week. So
Yeah.
we've had for the planner 1, we've had maybe about a dozen, but a lot of them don't have any background at all. Yeah.
What's the job description of the housing specialist?
It's going to be mainly the policies. And a lot of things have been coming up at town council about what should we do with properties, what are different development scenarios. And so this person will be that high level housing policy, and then deed restricted properties, we're about to restart talking AMIs and resale values. And they'll be coordinating those talks and things like that. So a lot of kind of high level policy, different methods that we could consider, especially for deed restricted housing. And then that one used to be a lot more, but we kind of broke it up, which is why we pulled STRs into another option. Employee housing is somewhere else now in our planner one. We'll do the day-to-day deed restricted work. So we're kind of going back to how we used to have it set up, where everyone does a little bit of everything for that. Yeah. So.
I had a question about the PUD amendments. Because I remember that the planning commission made certain recommendations, and then I was gonna ask you, did we make it through, or no, they got taken out? Okay.
Some of them did. I shouldn't have just said no. There were, I feel like the planning commission made a good number of recommendations. And I believe only one or two of them was carried through. And I can go back and tell you exactly which ones. It's just kind of out of my head right now. They all were clearly brought up at the town council meeting, explained where they were coming from and explained some different scenarios. But the council just I think the biggest one they didn't move forward with that the planning commission recommended was more regarding AMIs. And they didn't put in that AMIs that we talked about.
We say we lower, I don't remember.
We
I mean-
wanted more of like a requirement for more at lower AMIs and not as much live work unit type incentives.
Yeah, that'd be great if we could give us a summary
Yes,
next
I
time.
will.
That'd be.
Yeah,
'cause
I'll
now
make a
I'm
note, so
curious
I
as
don't
to what
forget. I should
happened.
have done that
That's
anyway.
okay.
It just got approved last week, but since it went through 2 readings, I should have done that by now.
And I guess my other question is that the former log cabin building is for sale?
Again. So Sally and I are meeting with the current owner tomorrow. We don't know what we're meeting about, so that could be part of it.
Is the owner renting to a Mexican restaurant? They have
Correct. That's
Mexican
my
food?
understanding at
They don't
least.
own
Yep.
Mexican restaurant.
And Rainbow Court is
It's for
for
sale.
sale.
They fixed the cut. Did you see their spiffy new concrete sidewalk? They fixed that to get into compliance with Public Works.
Okay.
I am currently asked for their broker's contact information because we keep getting told they're very serious about being under contract and they want to use the same plans. But I'm trying to figure out if that's valid or not.
Yeah,
So I.
because those plans were approved
Mhm.
4 years ago.
So they met a natural expiration?
One of the buildings
Hmm.
has, because
Yeah, oh, that's right, they were permitted.
they were separate. They were a year apart. Yep.
The foundation is in those buildings, correct? Was there, did the town of Frisco take a bond on that property or financial guarantee for anything?
Only the sidewalk.
Okay.
With it. So we are now taking improvement agreements and bonds for applications that are doing foundation only, which we typically don't do, but and also for help me out here, sorry, construction demos, we're taking bonds in now for.
And stuff that don't have an approved like major site plan application, which demo permits.
So we are now, after some of these outstanding products that you're seeing, we're requiring them.
I was gonna ask one more. Oh, what's it called? The big building over here? The 300-foot building?
Cheese grater? Oh, the one that's under construction.
Yes.
Yes.
I saw that there's progress on like the on-street parking and the bike path and. Looks
And they got
like it-
foundations in.
They do?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't notice that part.
The basement walls are poured. Or the
I guess-
underground parking garage.
I guess my question is the sidewalk, or sorry, walkway open or gonna
Not
be
yet.
open soon or?
You want to answer that one?
It will be open before winter time. That was our agreement with them, so they should be on track still. That was requested by staff and Public Works to open the bike path for the
Yeah.
winter.
They came back to Sally about a month ago and requested it stay open all winter and staff, stay closed all winter, thank you. And staff said, no, you need to open it for the winter. Yes.
The next day, the curbs started getting formed.
So, yes.
Okay.
Just for public safety in the winter and plowing, it doesn't make sense to have that much of a public right of way.
Yeah, that's like my running routes.
Not that I do that much running anymore, but anyway. Any other comments or questions? Anything
So
else?
I see that Gateway Plaza, that's fully under construction. That's going nice. So that's right next to what we're talking about before, the Summit Suites, the rooftop.
Oh, the AC Marriott.
The AC, yeah, the air conditioning Marriott. That, yeah, that's it. The AC Marriott. Yeah. Let's, I can't, well, you made it up. I only just recognized it.
I like it. We have not heard back from him since the appeal public hearing. So some of us in staff are going, we have been emailing each other to set up a time to outreach to them in 2 weeks. So
Was there any feedback on the part that they did paint, gray?
they have to come back and propose something to meet the code and they haven't yet. So we have nothing to look at. They haven't contacted us at all since the meeting. So we're gonna outreach just because we want to stay on top of it.
And just, I think of Robert when he was here. We talk about the guiding principles, when we go through all of the boilerplate that's in the literature that we approve. Some of the stuff, like this is gonna be market rate, what we just gave the go-ahead on further development, that's gonna be market rate. And you just don't really know how much that is enhancing the vitality of our community, putting more $2 million product on the market. So I don't want to get into that conversation, but it's troubling. I mean, I feel good that Silverthorne's got a bunch of rentals on the market, coming out of the ground. We're going to have rentals coming out of the ground. I mean, because that, if I had any chant, any mantra here, my whole stay, it's always been deed restricted rentals. And I would always hear from someone in your former chair that it's not feasible. And I just didn't really like that answer. So I'm real happy to see that that's coming along. But at the same time, I have to go home to my wife who's against a lot of this stuff. And she goes, "Oh, did you approve some more $2 million units?" So it's something that we have to come to grips with.
I mean, I agree, and that was the topic of a joint work session with the town council, and it seems like it doesn't really move forward.
So I will comment on that because staff, we haven't actually dropped it. We've just been behind on workload right now, all of us.
Really? Yeah.
However, like I watched the meeting or listened to it, so I was caught up on what was talked about. And Emily keeps reminding me that she's really enthused we start bringing back some of the topics talked about. So we actually, it's still on our walls is like this fall, winter. Hopefully by winter, especially once we get fully staffed or at least more staffed than we are right now. But yeah, it actually hasn't been dropped. It's just Emily's staying on top of it for us. She reminds me. She's like, I really can't wait to get back on those topics we talked about at that joint work session. And
Takes collaboration between, other staff members outside of community development. So there's just, a lot to go through with that, but hopefully we'll be getting to that soon.
Okay.
But we agree. It's not, we don't want to waste that whole conversation you had on different topics, so.
How would you like a motion to adjourn?
I love it. Perfect. Any opposed? Seeing none, meeting is adjourned.